KayFabe Smark Podcast.
Welcome to the KayFabe Smark Podcast with Eric Todd and Brian Rampa, your smart mark source for news and opinions on the world of professional wrestling.
Hey, what's going on? This is December 16th. We're coming at you live here on YouTube. Make sure you guys check us out on YouTube and subscribe, like, share, hit the little notification bell. When we go live, you can join us in the chat. Make sure you hit us up on TikTok and Instagram as well. We do a little bit on Facebook. There's a lot to cover, guys, and we're just trying to figure it all out. But we're here to talk about AEW. We're here to talk about professional wrestling in general, some would you rathers, or overrated, underrated, and all the fun games we like to play here. But before we get into all that, let's check in with Eric Todd. Eric, what is happening with you?
Oh, you know, same old. Up here in Michigan, we are experiencing some typhoon, hurricane-ass winds going on, blowing shit all over the place, knocking out power lines. So it's crazy here in Michigan. And also, today is Brody Lee's birthday. He would have been 42 today. So yeah, RIP to Brody Lee, but definitely dedicating this episode of the KayFabe Smark podcast to Mr. Brody Lee. Bummer he was gone. I think he would have been killing it right now, especially with the new additions in AEW.
The new additions in AEW, the plans, the things that could have been done, the Bray Wyatts being free agents, all of these things could have changed the game. So who knows what could have been done? But man, that puts into perspective when you say he was 40. He would have been 42.
Yeah, so that means he died when he was 41, or 40 or 41.
When you just hear, like, I'm only 38. You just start to hear your numbers.
I turned 40 next month, bro. So, yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, oh, man, I can see that number. And, like, man, that's crazy. So, all right, well, happy birthday to Brody Lee. We're going to do this one for Brody big time.
Yes, sir.
Got my Brody Lee micro brawler right here from AEW.
There you go.
From, where the heck were they from? Wrestling Tees.
ProWrestlingTees.com.
That's that. Anyways, what you got for some news, or what do you got going on with us here?
We do got some news coming up. If you slap that ticker, I will find my background.
This is the news. Eric's going to dedicate this news session to Mr. Brody Lee. He's going to throw his papers at me after it's all over. We're going to the news.
All right, first things first, Brian. Jerry the King Lawler has signed a new contract with WWE. He's been kind of lost in the sauce lately. We haven't heard much about the King.
He tends to put his foot in his mouth and then wonder why he gets taken off a TV. But
that just reminded me. Didn't he put his foot in Bret Hart's mouth?
He did. For the King of the Ring deal.
Yeah. PW Insider is reporting that Jerry the King Lawler has signed a 2-year contract and he will be with WWE until January of 2024. Looks like he's already made an appearance doing like a backstage segment or a pre-tape or something like that. So WWE trying to utilize the nostalgia, bring back the 90s era when everybody loved wrestling, and Jerry the King Lawler was a huge part of that.
Do you ever think that WWE does a Facebook or a Google when it comes to technology, right? So Facebook and Google and the likes will buy a piece of technology. Me and you invent the coolest app there is, right? We start this thing, it takes off, and they'll buy our app and put it on the shelf.
Right.
To kind of essentially kill it or copy it and roll it into their own. Do you believe that WWE is doing that with talent now, going, we don't want Jerry on the indies. We don't want Jerry going over to AEW. We don't really want him doing shoot interviews and saying things that he shouldn't say. We're just going to pay him some money and set him over to the side.
It's definitely a possibility. Doing the calculations, saying we haven't really cut the King a check in a long time. WWE is cutting out Blu-rays and DVDs here soon, and pretty much besides action figures and t-shirts, DVDs and Blu-rays were the only way the guys were making money. They don't make anything on the streaming services for their appearances. So the King hasn't been collecting many checks lately. So WWE knew he was probably going to be pursuing something. Might as well keep him close.
Well, I
Keep
mean,
him fenced in so
right.
Tony Khan don't start cutting checks for him.
Right. That's the thing. Is like you don't want him to go to TNA or Impact or whatever we call it, or going over to AEW. I mean, he still does his indie shows, and I think he'll always do those because WWE's not letting him wrestle, but it is what it is. I just wonder if they're doing just kind of, we'll just put some talent around here. We'll just decorate up with some talent and keep you to the side. That way we also own your intellectual property if we decide to make a action figure or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah. WWE always masters at chess. We're playing checkers. They're playing chess. Speaking of WWE, AEW president Tony Khan revealed that WWE has reached out to him to work with AEW talent for upcoming biographical projects likely destined for the WWE network. A quote from Tony says, "I heard from them recently. They were doing a lot of biographies and they wanted to use some of the people here, and I think that's the thing. It's probably going to come out sooner or later in interviews, or they want to interview some of the people that wrestle here that used to wrestle there." End quote. So not big news. The headline was definitely clickbait when I saw that.
Yeah.
WWE wanting to work with AEW talent, but they just want some interviews for little video projects to go on the network or whatnot.
Yeah, they did something similar to that a few years back for the Hall of Fame. I believe this is when the Dudleys were gone, and they were doing their Team 3D thing with Impact and everything, and they wanted to put him in the Hall of Fame, so Impact let him come over and do the WWE Hall of Fame, but in turn they wanted Christian to come and be on their TV. So they did like a trade, and that was like a time that Christian was signed to WWE, and they let him go over there and do his thing with Impact for some special event or some type of match or a referee enforcer thing. So that was the trade. We'll give you the Dudleys for your Hall of Fame induction. Give us Christian for a night. And, yeah, what the hell? Sure, why not?
So yeah, it's just good for everybody. You're not crossing too many lines. You're not having them wrestle matches or anything like that. But
it's not old school 1970s, 80s kayfabe where the good guy is the good guy and the bad guy is the bad guy, and it's also not 1980s, 90s wrestling where Vince didn't want us to believe that other wrestlers came from other wrestling promotions. We know that now. So
right.
Just let it go and, yeah, let the guys jump around, let them all make some money, and God bless and Godspeed.
Chris Jericho had to be hospitalized last Thursday in Wales ahead of a Fozzy concert. That concert ended up getting canceled, so Chris could go to the hospital. Dave Meltzer spoke to Chris Jericho, and Jericho said, "I'm feeling good. They just wanted to observe me overnight, and I'm in the right place. Not COVID related."
Nothing's COVID related.
Exactly, especially with Chris Jericho. He is a noted
mass
spreader of COVID at biker rallies and whatnot, and huge Trump supporter. And his wife was at the January 6th thing, and so yeah, when a sickness comes up with Jericho, you automatically assume it's COVID. So he wanted to squash that right then and there, not COVID related.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Cool story, Jericho. Quit being an asshole.
Excuse me. Charges have been dropped against our buddy Alberto Del Rio. We reported that in the news, I'm sure, probably right around a year ago or something like that. Michael Morales Torres, the PR agent for Alberto Rodriguez, aka Alberto Del Rio, issued a press statement for Del Rio saying his sexual assault / kidnapping charges have been dropped. In San Antonio, he said, "We want to formally announce that from today, December 10th, 2021, the Honorable Judicial System of the State of Texas has officially dismissed Alberto Rodriguez, known in the wrestling industry as Alberto Del Rio or Alberto El Patron, of all charges presented against him. Alberto Rodriguez has been dismissed of all the charges presented against him. So reiterating that over and over again. Just because charges were dismissed don't mean shit ain't happened.
Yeah.
That
OJ was
motherfucker's shady as hell.
OJ was acquitted too.
Right. So don't all trying to be painting Alberto Rodriguez as some fucking Mexican saint. He's done some shit. It's just this time it worked out for him.
Yeah, there ain't no question about it. I know I chuckled there. I wasn't laughing that he did what he did. It was just the mix of charges just sounded so like sexual assault and kidnapping and just like what goes through your head? Like what I don't know.
Whether you did anything or not, what kind of situation were you putting yourself into?
That somebody
all
got
of a sudden
confused.
You're charged with rape and sexual assault and kidnapping and pissing on a pineapple and whatever the fuck, whatever else they were throwing at Mr. Del Rio there.
Yeah, it's just so weird. It's just I've never been in a situation that would get misconstrued or get skewed to believe that's what happened for the evening. But anyways, let's move on and talk about something else in the news. There's got to be something positive coming up.
Well, speaking of positive, Johnny Sameface, a.k.a. Johnny Gargano, has left NXT, and immediately, Johnny on the spot here relaunched his Pro Wrestling Tees stores, announced new content for Twitch, and announced new content for YouTube. So Johnny Gargano getting his move on, making that money, and getting ready to see what's next for Mr. Gargano there.
Do you believe that he had to have been offered something, I would assume? One. Do you believe that he was either saying that the value that he was being determined at was not up to par? He wasn't being offered the right amount of money. Do you think he saw the writing on the wall that they are going in a new direction and letting go of the little guy, if you will? Or all of the above, or just wants to go back out and, it's not the WWE of years past. There's actually other things to go do.
Right. There's plenty of options there now. If I were a betting man, I would say WWE seriously lowballed him. He's not, if he went to AEW, it would be cool, but it wouldn't be a blockbuster thing where people are losing their minds like a Bryan Danielson or an Adam Cole.
I don't know. That internet wrestling community would light
they love
up
them
for
some Gargano.
He's the guy. He's the underdog guy. He came from the internet wrestling community.
Well, in WWE's eyes, he's not the guy who's gonna make AEW blow up.
No.
So I'm sure they lowball them, and Gargano also knows when 2022 comes around and the WWE Con, I can't remember his first name right now.
Yeah, I forget.
Nick Khan.
Nick Khan.
When Nick Khan decides that it's time for payroll cuts, Gargano's dancing on that line, man. He would be one of the guys they let go. So I think he just wanted to get out of a bad situation. That's just my opinion.
Save his own face and move on, and that way it's not, he can still walk away with some credibility into his name and not go pulled up to the main roster, call him Bearcat Gargano, give him a mini skirt, and then send him on his way.
Yeah, for sure. He would definitely end up in one of them situations in 2022 if I had to guess. So he knows he has plenty of options out there. Impact or AEW is going to be all over him once that no competes up. And I'm excited to see what's up for Mr. Gargano.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad. I'm going to get out there and do something else. Take back some old school, territory style wrestling is what I'm hoping to see with some few things. So,
yeah, definitely. Kevin Owens has broken our hearts, Brian. We were being teased for so long. We were being tickled that Mr. Owens, a.k.a. Kevin Steen, was going to leave WWE, possibly show up in AEW. Young Bucks have been teasing it for a while. But Kevin Owens has re-signed with WWE, and it is appearing that he has signed a 3 or 4 year contract here worth about $2 to $3 million per year, according to Dave Meltzer. Looks like a 3-year deal now as I go through my notes. And Owens released a statement, and I quote, "I'm just going to say that it still ends on January 31st, but not 2022. I'm still going to be there for several years. The decision was pretty easy because it really was what was best for my family. When it comes to that, it's always a pretty easy decision. WWE has been my home for 7 years, so I have a sense of belonging. Basically, I spent most of my career there. When you look at the wrestling companies I've wrestled in and WWE, that's where I've been the longest, and that's where I need to be for the next few years. That's how I felt, and that's the decision I made." Can't blame him for that. I didn't think Tony Khan was going to throw 2 or 3 million a year at KO.
No, 2 or 3 million a year plus whatever he's getting off of royalties from T-shirts, whatever he's getting off of royalties from action figures, whatever. All of that, the WWE marketing machine, the capability and possibility of going into movies, into TV, all that type of acting stuff that they have that follows WWE. There's like a career too that follows you post WWE. Right into commentary, right into hosting DVDs. Look at Pat McAfee. He just did that whole Ruthless Aggression thing on I'll say the WWE Network, but on Peacock. Like he was he did the voiceover work for it. There's all kinds of stuff post murdering yourself by jumping off of WrestleMania signs. So, why not?
Yeah, and the money's big. The money's important. But I think the most important thing of this KO deal is he worked it into the contract that they can't cut him before that 3 years is up.
Or they're still paying him. Go ahead, and set me on the shelf. I'll go home. I'll move to Canada and just keep writing me them checks.
Yeah, the company can't release him before the deal is up. So yeah, even if they get tired of him and they don't want him to do shit, they can still pay him $2 to $3 million a year to just chill, that's a deal I'll take any day of the week.
Got that old Kevin Nash, Scott Hall deal going on. When WCW was bought out, the way that their contracts were structured is they actually signed a contract with Turner Sports, not WCW or something along those lines. Meaning
Right.
WWE didn't get the contracts of all those wrestlers. You could sit at home and do nothing. So all the guys who jumped right to WWE got a buyout from their original contract at 50 cents on the dollar and signed a new contract. So that's why Scott Nash, Hogan, they all sat at home for 2 years. Goldberg.
Yeah, that explained why the invasion was so lame. You didn't get any of the guys you really wanted because WWE wasn't going to match that TNT money, and why would the guys do anything anyway when they're making millions?
That's why,
just chill at home.
There's an interview with Kevin Nash, and he was telling DDP, he's like, "What are you doing? Like, they're paying us to sit at home." And DDP just wanted to work, and he got bought out at 50 cents on the dollar for his old contract to get a new contract, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, KO put that works into the contract. Work it to your benefit. Why wouldn't you? I would. Especially if you're that guy. He's a name.
You don't want to use me? Fuck you. Pay me.
That's your finishing move.
Yeah. It's being reported by Fightful Select that a fan went into the AEW locker room last week and sat in Dax Harwood's seat before being informed of the fact. The fan apologized and explained that he was an extra and moved over for Dax and jumped into the seat that I guess belonged to the Blade.
They got assigned seats backstage? Like, what's happening? What's this, kindergarten?
I don't know what the hell's going on backstage at AEW, but some dickhead snuck in and tried to act like he was an extra. And then the boys started interviewing him, asking him questions. He didn't know the answers to said questions. And they pretty much figured out that he didn't belong there. And Dax Harwood and who was it? Dax Harwood and somebody else escorted him out. MJF. Dax Harwood and MJF escorted the fan out of the building.
Oof.
And that's kind of an oof on security right there. Apparently it would fall on the building's hired security at that point. It's just, the whole thing is just strange.
Very.
Just, how does a guy just walk in and just go hang out in the locker room?
bullshit artist. He probably made a fake pass and just walk like you're meant to be there, start poking and then open the door and lead with your dick.
At one point, he even said he was a friend. Oh, I'm friends with Taz. And they're like, oh, sure, whatever, buddy.
I'm in Team Taz.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well believe him. If he's wearing orange and black and he says he's in Team Taz,
I'm wrestling
Brian line.
I'm wrestling on Dark.
But that's going to do it for the news this week, Brian. Happy birthday to Brody Lee. And
I got a couple little
the news.
I got a couple little things. There's little things. I watched the ROH, the final battle over the weekend. I peeped that out, and you had FTR make an appearance at the end of the Briscoes match. So the Briscoes win. They retain the Ring of Honor title for whatever that is worth, as it's now not a defunct company. We won't quote that, but things are on hold through the winter, and they're going to come back in the spring with some new plan as the plan. But yeah, the FTR made an appearance, and they came out pretty rough on the Briscoes there, and they were cursing, and they didn't let them get at each other. So hopefully it was a tease. They released the Briscoes released a video on TikTok. I saw it, but scrolling around the internet of them cutting a promo, feeding their chickens, cursing and yelling and telling Tony Khan, I get out there and clear the cornfield right now, boy. You can lay in that Tony Khan playing right out there, boy. Come on now. We got a wrestling ring in the barn next door. So they were hooting and hollering, telling FTR to fly in on that Tony Khan money. We'll wrestle it anywhere you want to do this at. And he's like, I'm going back. I'm over it. I'm going to feed my chickens. So those Briscoes, I was hoping we might see him in what we were going to talk about, AEW's Winter is Coming last night, but we did not. Spoiler alert, but we all talk about that. And also we saw a Ring of Honor final battle, Adam Shearer, also formerly known as Braun Strowman, now currently known as Titan, made an appearance. Titan Towers, Titan Sports, WWE. That's the name he went with. Joined the group with EC3. Remember EC3 from TNT? He was in and also in NXT, and then also in Impact for a little bit there. So they're in some group. They're calling themselves apparently joined a faction with EC3. Oh, I forget the. God dang it!
Where is this faction going to work? Seeing as how there is no ROH for the time being.
Right. So. Also, I read that Killer Cross is joining into this faction, formerly known as Karrion Kross. Killer Cross kind of teaming up with these guys. And the idea, it sounds like, is they're going to bounce around and just be guys on the wrestling scene. So it could be a pretty cool idea if you think about it. They could have, these little pick up some shows. They can be an attraction, meaning they can pick if they can do if they can work. Go to Impact, and then pick up Ring of Honor, and then go to Japan, and do some indie stuff, and then come to AEW, or when Ring of Honor comes back, but you know what I'm saying, bounce around to all these things. They could make it pretty cool, or leave some guys scattered around, kind of like the Young Bucks, and they've got their buddies over there in Impact. They've got, the Bullet Club thing. They've got this, that, and the other all scattered amongst everywhere. Anyways. That was the little news. That was the only thing I watched that was wrestling related over the weekend. Had to watch Final Battle. It was the final Ring of Honor show that possibly could be. Tony Khan lent a lot of guys from AEW to give goodbye speeches that were involved with it. So they told CM Punk was on there, like, hey, maybe this is the end, maybe it's not. Bryan Danielson, etc., and so on. So it was interesting. I say go ahead and peep that out if you haven't watched the Ring of Honor Final Battle. That was worth it. But so that's the end of my news. You had some appearances by some guys, and I can't wait to see FTR and the Briscoes. I think that could be very, very entertaining.
Yeah, that was all pretty cool things that happened with ROH. I didn't happen to hear about it. I've been busy as all hell over the last week, but yeah, I'm excited for that Braun Strowman faction going on, seeing what kind of touring hooligans they're going to be and what kind of shit they're going to tear up. Definitely excited about the Briscoes and FTR. I've been keeping an eye on them on Twitter. They've been exchanging barbs left and right. Dax Harwood offered to buy him ring gear out of his own pocket, and the Briscoes took real offense to that. And
Dem
so
boys.
I'm excited to see what happens with them. That's definitely a match I want to see.
100%. That's the news, and we'll hit the ticker and move on to something else. We've got all kinds of news. We've got Ring of Honor debuts and Ring of Honor debuts at their final pay-per-view. Who knows what's happening? But now, let's get over here. And, it's time to play our most favorite game show, our original here. It's time for...
Let's play Overrated or Underrated with Eric Todd.
That's right, my friends. Overrated, underrated, Eric Todd. That's my man sitting there. We're going to square up his graphic a little bit here. It was just my ugly cartoon mug in there. We'll stretch Eric out. All right. Overrated, underrated. We are going to do an evolution of characters. Overrated or underrated, the character evolution. We'll start you off with the first one. It's an easy one. We're going to talk about overrated or underrated Hunter Hearst Helmsley to Triple H, the game. Overrated or underrated?
That's definitely underrated all the way. In hindsight, I love me some original Hunter Hearst Helmsley with the plies and the blue blood and all that. It's great to watch for nostalgia purposes, but man, when he became the game, he changed the game. Absolutely murdered it. Became one of the top guys of all time in WWE. So thank God Paul Levesque flipped that switch and became the game Triple H.
The game Triple H, underrated. I'm going to be honest with you. Saw that one coming. Here we go. Overrated or underrated? Hulk Hogan, say your prayers and eat your vitamins, evolving into Hollywood. Too sweet, NWO Hogan.
There's no other answer than underrated with that one. A heel turn for Hogan. For us, Brian, we're in our late 30s. We grew up on babyface Hogan. We weren't jaded. We weren't waiting for a heel turn like we are with Cody Rhodes. But I'm sure the adults back then watching wrestling was like, man, I'm so sick and tired of this white meat babyface. We need a heel turn. And Hogan would not turn. Vince would not turn him for the life of him. So when Hogan finally flipped the script and turned heel on us, the wrestling world might as well just have exploded when Hogan became a heel here. And that just completely revamped, recharged his career, and he took off like he had rockets up his ass. So, Hogan's heel turn, definitely underrated.
Underrated Hogan's heel turn. Rumor was that at Bash at the Beach, they didn't know if Hogan was going to turn. He was still up until the last minute when he walked through the curtain. Rumor has it, old Wrestling Wives' Tale is that they had Sting was going to be the third man in case Hogan bailed, and they were going to send the referee to give him the heads up that, hey, you're the new third guy. Get your ass up. Overrated, underrated, Undertaker into the dead man, meaning Undertaker in let's reword that. The Undertaker to Biker Taker.
Oh boy. That one was definitely overrated. It didn't. I think everybody knew from the beginning that it wasn't going to take as much as WWE thought it would take off. But still, WWE just shoved it down our throats like it was the best thing that ever happened. It was the best thing since excrement calling a sliced bread. That Undertaker was going to be a real guy now. He was going to wear a Canadian tuxedo and ride his motorcycle down. But rumor has it that Taker himself wasn't a real fan of the American Badass character. And that whole thing, it was necessary for him to shake things up a little bit so the original Taker character didn't get too stale. But Biker Taker did not do as well as everyone hoped it would. Ended up being an overrated character evolution.
There's another story that goes with that being passed around the internet is that he was possibly going to be leaving WWE at that point and going to WCW, and he could not use the Undertaker name, and he would come in as Mark Calloway riding motorcycles and being who he is. So there's an old story with that. Let me see here. Mr. Andrew Shad popping in the chat. Biker Taker was not great, but it was necessary for the era it was in. That's my opinion. Well, hey, there you go. It did fit the era that they were at.
Yeah. Definitely gave us a chance to hear some Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit on WWE shows, which, again, we were in our late teens, early 20s possibly.
I mean,
and Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock in WWE.
God bless. It was all about new metal at that time. All right, overrated, underrated, Mankind to Mick Foley.
This one, Brian, I'm going to say that was overrated. People eat it up, and they absolutely love it, and they love Mick Foley as a person, and they love that he took off the proverbial mask, figuratively and literally, to just show who he really was. But I really, really would have preferred if he just, even if he changed the Mankind gimmick up a little bit, if he would have stayed Mankind and stayed demented, I feel he could have solidified that character even more than it already was. So I think the evolution from Mankind into Mick Foley was overrated.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's a good character for him to move out, that worked for him out to retirement, if that makes any sense. Because a Mankind retirement doesn't make any, to have him come back and be a special referee, but
Right.
in his wrestling character didn't. Last one here, overrated, underrated, surfer, blonde-haired Sting, evolving into the Crow Sting that we currently know today. Still.
This one has to be underrated because it was completely necessary. If Sting tried to hold on to that surfer bleach blonde hair gimmick for a couple more years longer than he had, he would have just faded into obscurity. And he's a talented guy, but I think he was kind of on his way to fading out, and then just kind of reinvented himself with the Crow Sting, and then boom, rockets up his ass. That character really stuck, did tremendous amounts of money for him, brought in tons of fans, and it's lasted, God, how long's it been since he turned? 25 years, something like that?
I mean, NWO was what, 96 or 97? So
yeah, 25 years he's been holding on to this Crow gimmick, and it's working for him. So there's no other answer than underrated.
Yeah, Surfer Sting was good, but the Crow Sting was great. Side story behind that one is it's Scott Hall gave him to him and said, "Hey, yo, Sting, why don't you paint your face like the Crow?" And then he flicked a toothpick at him, according, that's what Sting says.
And then we went to TNA Bound for Glory in the early 2000s, and they made an announcement over the speaker system. If there's any juggalos here with black and white face paint, please let us know, because Sting forgot his face paint because he's an asshole.
Was there no store? Sting doesn't have any money? Just like, hey, anybody got face paint in your pocket? I got to paint my face. Oh, that was a classic one there. Well, there it was. That was overrated, underrated, the character evolution. And now we are going to sit down and talk about AEW and Winter is Coming. Brr. Ooh, I'm chilly. Got the blue lights in the background for the ice tonight. There, you got your Winter is Coming background. I've got my chilly ice scene in the back. We're ready to hear to talk about Winter is Coming. AEW's free per-view show that was not a pay-per-view, but it's built up to be a big pay-per-view-esque style show. And well, how do we kick things off?
Well, all I can say is, Burr, it's cold in here. It must be some toros in the atmosphere. So bring it on, baby. So we started things off hot, Brian. We started things off with the match everybody wanted to see, the world title match, Bryan Danielson versus the champion, Hangman Adam Page. I was a little up in the air. I was a little confused of why they were starting out with this, but as we get through the match, spoiler alert, the match lasted an hour.
Yeah.
That's why. There's no way at 9:00 they're like, okay, we're gonna get into our main event here at 9:00, because that just gives it away that it's gonna last an entire hour.
It does. We were was chatting with Andrew there during this show, and we were having the same questions, like, what are they going to do? Why they got this first? And my first thought was they wanted to give us a good hook for the show. They wanted to hook us in, give the big shit up front, and carry it through the show. That so much wasn't the case. They just gave us this big match up front, and clearly we figure out why as it works out towards the end there. But that was my first thought. It was just trying to hook everybody in, but it didn't seem like there was enough to back it up to really keep you going. But I saw how long this thing was going, and man, they went the distance.
They sure did. And I had the same thought as you. It's the Young Bucks spot. It's the Young Bucks pretty much carved that niche when they were on TV every single week, that they wanted the first match of the night to kind of hook the audience in. So I'm right there with you and Andrew. Assumed that they were just taking the Young Bucks first match spot to bring the audience in. But I don't know, Brian. This was a long match, but they kept me wrapped up in it. What do you think?
It was a long match. The thing that it just seemed to me that the Danielson came off better, looked stronger, looked better the entire time. The champ didn't look very good the entire match, but I kept watching. It kept me engaged. I didn't hate all of it as it was going, but there were some high points, some low points. It got long, but overall, the champ did not look like the guy. He didn't look like the champ.
I'm gonna agree with you on that. We'll start things off and we'll work our way through this thing chronologically. Bryan Danielson. This match showed, even though Adam Page is fantastic, he's talented, he's a pro, this showed the dramatic difference between how much of a professional Bryan Danielson is compared to how much of a professional Adam Page is. Everything Danielson did in this match was on point. He started off slow. This match started off with a collar and elbow tie-up that lasted a little longer than hoped for. But right off the get-go, Danielson reverses a move from Adam Page, immediately starts celebrating. He's just working that heel shit. He'll escape a move from Adam Page and slide over the corner, start doing jumping jacks. And it's just, he is working it. Right from the beginning, we're a minute into this match, and the crowd already hates him because he's such a cocky ass.
Yeah, it's funny that he was, like, go back a few months, and the big pop that he got for being that, that he was there. He came